Welcome to the Stories of Christmas podcast. My name is MyLinda Butterworth, and I will be your teller of tales during this festive season. Today, we meet Strenae in a small village in Italy, where she is busy cleaning when a bright star appears in the sky, followed later by 3 learned men searching for the child of the prophecy. And when offered the chance to go with them, decides to clean instead. In La Befana, the Giver of Gifts, a tale of Italy, as told by MyLinda Butterworth. Herod was king of Jerusalem when my story begins. My friend Strenae lived on a hilltop in Italy, where she lived by herself. Living alone was not her choice. Her husband was a soldier who died in the battle, and her only son died as a young boy. You would think this would make her a bitter old woman, but that was not true. She had a big heart. She had many vegetable gardens. She cared for along with a garden full of herbs. The herbs she bundled and made them into tinctures or remedies of all kinds of ailments, or to clear the air. The vegetables she used to feed herself, and when there was an abundance, she always shared with those who had less than her. Her shawl was tattered, and her shoes were worn. Her dress was patched, but it used to be dyed in bright colors. In the village where she lived, the people knew Strenae for her healing, baking, cooking, sweeping, and cleaning. Her home was always clean. What does all this matter? Let me tell you her story. In 3 very far away countries live some very learned men who studied the stars. Some people call them astrologers, some magi, and some just wise men. Their names were Melchior, Balthasar, and Gaspar. And for many years they searched the sky for a new star that would verify the prophecy that the Holy Child, the King of the Jews, had been born, and each of them had vowed when that new star appeared that they would follow it to where this special babe had been born. One night, while they were gazing into the skies, a star burst upon the clear sky and shone brighter than any star they had ever seen. They knew at that moment the child of prophecy had been born. Each one of them packed up provisions for the trip, along with a gift fit for a king. One brought a box of gold, one the gift of myrrh, a holy oil, and the third one brought frankincense, the finest of all incense. They each traveled from their own country, and one day, as they were approaching the great city of Jerusalem, they met each other. They did not speak the same language, dress alike, or even look alike, but they all had one thing in common. They were all searching for the star that would show over the dwelling of the newborn king. It was all at that moment that nothing else mattered, and they decided to travel together, these 3 wise men. Later that day, as they approached the top of the hill, they saw a woman outside sweeping and humming to herself. Gaspar got off his great horse and said, "Shalom, my dear woman. Would you allow us to stop and water our animals? It has been a long trip and we are tired." Strenae immediately put down her broom. Why, of course. She leads them to a trough where they could care for their animals. I see that you are tired as well. Please, sit and I will feed you if you will share the story of what brings you to my humble home. The 3 wise men nodded their heads and sat at her table and began to tell Strenae about the new star in the east that they were following, and how it would lead them to the child of the prophecy. The story was fascinating to Strenae. since she too had noticed the new star which had just appeared in the sky and had noticed how bright it was. Balthazar stood to leave and said, "Strenae, we thank you for your hospitality, but we must continue our journey to find the Holy Child before the starlight fades away. Will you not join us in our quest?" Strenae, she blushed like a new bride, thinking about the chance to meet this special child, but then busied herself at clearing the table. I thank you for your offer, but I have too many chores to do right now." The Magi bowed deeply to their hostess and gathered their animals to leave. Once more, Balthazar turned to Strenae and said, "Are you sure you would not like to travel with us?" Once again, Strenae hung her head and began to sweep again, saying, No, I am much too busy to make such a long journey with you, but I thank you again for your offer and the good news. May your journey be successful." She watched as they mounted their animals and headed towards the east, following the star. Melchior turned and waved at her as they left. Strenae, she watched as they rode out of sight and began to wonder why she could not have put aside her choice just this time and gone on this once-in-a-lifetime adventure to see the child of the prophecy. She began to have an aching in her heart as she thought of her own son and how she loved little children. Before long, she was chiding herself for always putting work before doing something for herself. And without even thinking, she had grabbed her largest basket and filled it with food and all her son's belongings. As she closed the door, she grabbed her broom and she swept away the dirt from the front of the door because she just could not bear the thought of leaving her house dirty. Once out of the door, Strenae followed the path of the Magi in hopes of catching up with them. She ran for miles, but soon became so exhausted that she had to sit down to catch her breath. As she sat, she leaned against the tallest tree, thinking to herself that she would stop for just a few moments. But soon her eyelids began to flutter, and before long, she was asleep. As she slumbered, a light from the new star descended upon her, and she woke up. What she saw in front of her was a heavenly being who leaned over and sprinkled sawdust on Strenae's broom and basket, and then gone as quickly as they had appeared. Strenae sat straight up and rubbed her eyes. She wasn't sure if what she had seen was a dream or real. But she knew that she must hurry if she was to have any chance of seeing the Holy Child. When she stood up, she was full of energy. She picked up her broom and basket, and they felt as she was lifting a feather. She began to run when she noticed that she was being lifted off the ground by her broom, and so she sat down and hung her basket on the broom. What magic was this? Or maybe it was a gift. Strenae thought of herself. No matter, she was in a hurry, and this would help her. As Strenae traveled that night, every time she saw a baby or a child, she stopped and gave them some food and a gift, for she never knew which child would be the Holy One. As hard as she searched, she never did find those 3 wise men. But she did eventually find the child, Jesus. She gave him the gifts she had brought to make him happy. The infant child, Jesus, was so delighted that he bestowed a gift on her as well. In her mind, she heard these words, "Strenae, because thou hast been valiant in your efforts to find me, I will bless you to be the mother of all the children of Italy for 1 night each year. You will give small gifts to the children as a reminder that God loves them. Finally, from this day forth, you shall be known as La Befana. La Befana literally means giver of gifts. So if you are lucky enough to be in Italy the eve of Epiphany, look to the sky to see if you see her flying overhead on her broom, bringing joy to good children. For it brings a smile to her face to know that she serves the King of Kings. And here is where I end my tale for today. But I'll be back with more stories. Many more stories. Thanks for joining me today as we explore stories from around the world. If you enjoyed this story, give us a thumbs up and like us and subscribe. For more stories like this one, check out our book, Crazy About Christmas. Until then, enjoy everything this season has to offer. We'll see you again soon.